welcome back. If you're new here, welcome. My name is Megan. Today we're going to be doing the first update in the Testing My Palettes series. If you missed the intro, I will link it below so you can go and get caught up on what I'm doing and why we're looking at these palettes. But essentially I'm testing all the palettes in my collection currently to see my thoughts on them, if I want to keep them. I really just want to feel motivated to use some different color stories. I've really not been using eyeshadow palettes this year, so I'm trying to work through what I actually think I should keep and what I just need to pass along. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be going through the 3 palettes that I selected when I saw you guys in the intro, and those include the Anastasia Primrose Palette. It also includes the Colourpop New Moon palette and the Colourpop Going Coconuts palette. As promised, I will be inserting every look I did, talking about my thoughts, the formulas, all of that, and swatching them out so you can get a really in-depth idea of these palettes. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump on in. Sorry, just 2 more little things. I'm also going to be introducing the next set of palettes at the end of this video that I'll be testing, so you can see which ones I will be working on. And also, if you see me glancing over to the side here, that's where I have my MacBook set up so that I can look at the looks and the notes that I made regarding the looks as we walk through them with you guys, because I want to make sure I didn't miss any of my thoughts while going through and testing these. Okay, so the first palette we're going to chat about is the ABH Primrose Palette. I've had this for a little over 2 years, and as you can see, I pretty clearly have enjoyed it during its time with me. This palette, originally I had decluttered and I brought it back because I just wasn't ready to let go of the color story. Even though I am experiencing some formula changes, I wasn't ready to let it go, so I wanted to give it one last shot in this project. So let's talk about the looks and how they went, the wear time, all of that. So the first look, I used the shades, and I'll pop the photo up here, which I probably shouldn't be wearing a white sweater for all of these swatches. Now I'm gonna be cold. Sigh. But I use the shade Rouge, which I love. And then I also used the shade Honey, which is just like a great shade that I use for a lot of the looks when I reach for this palette. And then I used Sparkling Amber, which is just insanely beautiful. My favorite in the palette. It looks like a basic whatever here, but it is so sparkly in person. I absolutely love it. And then I used the shade Deep Berry, which is that dark purple right there. All right, sorry, not really sure that cut me off. My dogs have been barking like crazy lately and it's driving me nuts. So I shut them in here with me, so hopefully they won't be doing that. But yeah, if crazy swatches drive you nuts, then I am sorry. But this is the color palette for the first look that I did. And I really wanted to test out the Sparkling Amber shade. The reason being is like I was experiencing some pretty significant creasing with it the last time that I had used it. So this time I went in with a glitter glue and I used a little bit thinner of a layer, and that seemed to help. It creased a little bit still, but not as intensely as before. It was like to a point where I felt like, okay, I can live with this, very minimal, especially because I really love the shade and I love the color story in the palette. I also wanted to say that the shade Deep Berry felt very dry compared to how it always been, so I feel like that matte might be drying out, but the way that I used it in this look, just put out in the outer corner, is probably how I would likely use it moving forward. And that kind of goes to speak to how my preferences have changed and my makeup style have changed over the years. Because before, I used to always take the crease all the way in and up and like all the way up in there. But now I don't really do that. Like I still bring it up some, or I just keep it right out here. Cause I was like worried that this like wouldn't perform well if I used it like more boldly or all over the lid. But I was like, I'm never gonna do that. So who cares? If it works the way that I wear it, then that's really all that matters to me. So that's kind of where I was at after the first look. Okay, so for the second look, I swatched them beforehand, so hopefully this will help. I used, oh no, okay, so that's all the way over there. Jesus Christ. If you're new here, hey, I'm a little bit of a mess sometimes, but I at least hope that it makes you laugh. So anyways, here are the shades for that look. Very pretty. Rosewater is another one of my absolute favorites. I actually love to use this not only like on the lid or an inner corner, it also makes a stunning highlight, which is honestly probably why I have so much progress on it. But this look was like really fun, light, but still had a little bit of depth to it. This is kind of where my makeup style overall is edging toward. Like, I know today you're probably like, wow, you have on a super vibrant, bright, like look, not colorful, but intense. And we'll talk about this. It's from one of the palettes. But like my overall style has shifted to something lighter, which is like the deepening of the very outer corners. So really this is like my ideal look, and all of these shades performed beautifully. I didn't have any issues with them. I didn't even have to use like a glitter glue or anything like that. So I really enjoyed look number 2. For look number 3, I did something a little bit bolder with the shade Peony. I went in with Peony and then Claret and then Grapefruit. So cute little color story here that I felt like went together really nice. And the Grapefruit shade is that one that's like I don't even know like what they are trying to do, if it was like trying to be a blush or what. But this works like pretty well all over the lid or to buff up into the transition. Honestly, it's not one that I can see myself reaching for that often, but I did want to try to use a lot of the shades in the palette to more familiarize myself or work outside the box, that kind of thing. And while I did really enjoy this look and what it brought to the table, it was a little bit bright for my preferences, like as far as what I usually wear. So this probably isn't a look that I would circle back to, but I did enjoy it. Okay, and then for the final look, I used this color palette over here, which is Sparkling Amber, Mango, and then Saddle. And overall, I did really like this look. I felt like it was a little bit more orangey than I was going for. This Mango shade here is a very interesting color. It's like a peachy brown. I don't necessarily love it, and it's not really one that I reach for or foresee myself reaching for. Honestly, the Mango shade is one I don't think I'll reach for. Grapefruit. Saddle, I feel like there's a time and a place, but it won't be like a go-to if I'm reaching for this palette. And then also the other shade I just decided that I wasn't going to use was Fire Opal. This one is super pretty, but it's just a little intense for what I wear these days. Very vibrant, in your face, orangey gold tone, which like it's beautiful. And if you look at the palette, like I have clearly used it, but that was kind of the point where like, has this palette's time come and gone with me, because I'm not going to really be using that shade. So there's like 4 shades in here that I don't really foresee myself using. Especially if I'm going for like a more like brownie golden look, I'm really gonna stick to the sparkling amber shade here and then rouge. Like this little trio right here are my go-to for the brown look. And then if I'm wanting something more pinky and ethereal, I like this rosewater shade and this deep shade here. And ultimately, like, I still think that it is worth me keeping because this is a palette that I put in my declutter bin, and then I found myself wanting to use it and wanting to pull it out. And that is like one of the first times that's ever really happened. Usually when it's in the declutter bin, I've very well thought it through. I'm decided on it. But the fact that I just was not sure and wanting to pull this back out made me feel like I need to revisit it. Like maybe I'm not ready. And I definitely think that that's the case. I don't think I'm ready to declutter this. I really enjoyed the 4 looks I created with it and look forward to creating more with it. So yeah, I'm gonna hang on to this first palette. All right, so the next palette we're gonna be looking at is Going Coconuts from Colourpop. This is one that I recently allowed myself to indulge in. I've been eyeing it forever, and yet I still was not keen enough to figure out how cool this palette was leaning. So we'll talk about that. Look number 1 here really just started the train of like, what did I buy? I don't know. So when I reached for this, like initially, these are the shades that drew me in the most. The first one being Shredded, and then I also used the shade here, which is Lovely Bunch, and then Shell Yeah, and Cocoa Crush. That's what I did my first look with, and I didn't really love it. I don't know, like the tones just didn't seem to be meshing together, and I don't know if it was like the tones within the palette or the tones within the palette meshed with my skin tone just weren't coming together well, because the first look, it was okay, but it just like leaned so much more cool than I wanted it to. And I honestly thought that the shimmers would be sparklier. Like from everything that I had heard online and stuff from this palette, I was thinking, I guess I was just thinking something completely different than what it really was. The mattes were lightweight, they were buildable. I didn't really have any like fallout from the shimmers or anything like that. So like everything performed well. The issue for me within this palette is really just like the color story not being what I thought it was and not being like flattering to my personal makeup style and preferences. The next look number 2, is the one that really sealed the deal for me, that I'm over having a very like dark extenuated crease. These were the shades that I used. I used that Shredded shade again up here, which you probably can't really see. I also used the shade Colada, Nutty, De Coco, and Palm Reader. This shade here is very dark and very cool toned, and I brought it up too far, which is like on me, but I just brought it up far. Like I've done makeup in the past and I just hated it. I was like, I think that I'm very past that kind of placement in my makeup for the most part. So I feel like that kind of really weighed into this look. It came out just looking very gray and silvery, which I didn't like and I didn't anticipate, especially because like this shade, I don't know, I thought it had like a really nice brown undertone, but it ended up pulling just like very cool silver on my lids and I didn't love it. The next look number 3, Get Crackin', which is this one right here, is the only new shade that I used, which is like really nice light. It's very more like neutral, warm leaning. So very much more my speed. I use that with the shades Shredded, Cocoa Crush, Get Crackin', and Palm Reader. This I would say was probably my favorite look. It really adhered more to the current makeup style that I'm currently in. And I feel like the tone that this pulled, more of that like warmth from my skin, made the look just look better and more cohesive and matched my skin tone a lot better. So I think like this was definitely one of my favorite looks. It was very light, very elegant. I really enjoyed this look. And then for the last look, I wanted to center it around the shade Shell Yeah, because that is my favorite matte in the palette. Like, this shade is so stunning. So for the look, I literally just used Shell Yeah, and then I used Nutty, and I tried to be more conservative with my placement of the Nutty shade. And I do feel like I liked that better, the way that I placed it on the outer corner and just up into the crease, like just a skosh. The only thing that really bothered me was I had pretty decent creasing by the end of the day. And I'm like, seriously, brand new palette. Like, yeah, the ABH one has some creasing, but that palette's like 4 years old. This is like brand new, and it was creasing, and especially because I didn't have a shimmer on the lid, like it felt more noticeable, like it looked oily. So I didn't love that, but I loved the color. And I just think, like, I'm looking at it and I was like, you know, I am not really one to use like these like little brightening shades right here, so I wouldn't use that. But like, I don't know, the color story just isn't really what I thought it was gonna be. I thought it was like more neutral leaning warm, but really it's neutral leaning pretty cool. But then I feel like it's weird because like this shade has warmth to it and this shade has warmth to it. So I feel like it makes it, I don't know, a little bit difficult when you're trying to think of color combinations and what's going to pair together, because the undertones of these shades aren't really that cohesive, if that makes sense. So I don't know. And I went back and forth, like, do I keep this? Do I get rid of it? Because like I've wanted this palette, literally, you guys, for so long, and I haven't got it because I try not to buy from Colourpop, and I got it with credit card cash back, and then now I'm like, I don't even really like it. I'm so mad. I'm like, oh, I waited all this time and I don't even really like it. Yeah. So I was like, you know what? I thought about keeping it just to see if I would change my mind. But I think we both know that this will just sit in my drawer until my next declutter when I think about decluttering it. So like, I'm just not even going to hang on to it. I'm going to let this palette go. I just don't think that it elevates my collection, especially the way I thought it would. I thought it would be a go-to, really simple, really pretty palette that I would reach for all the time. And after testing it, unfortunately, it's not that. Okay, so the last palette we're going to chat about today is the Colourpop New Moon palette. Absolutely stunning. My boyfriend got this one for me because he knows New Moon is my favorite from the Twilight Saga. So I was very happy to get this. Like, I think the color story is beautiful. I love the packaging. Obviously, I love the theme. Here are swatches, which I know I've done these swatches now in 3 different ways. Let me know if any of them were helpful. If not, leave suggestions or which one was the best, and I'll go from there. I almost feel like it would be best if I pre-swatch them and then like put up a photo, because it's really hard to like get swatches you guys can see like on my arm, like, you know what I'm saying? So let me know about the swatch thing. I'm sorry that it is a mess in the current video. But for the first look, this one actually had me gagged. And this was one of the things that I was kind of hoping that would happen, because like with the Colourpop New Moon palette, essentially I was doing the same like look every time. There was like a variation of like 2 shades, and that's what I was doing every time. And I really wanted this project to help like challenge me to use some of the other shades, and I really think that it did do that. So I love that for me. The first look ended up having me gagged. So I used the shade Senior Year, which is this beautiful yellow here. And then I used Your Everything, which is the deep dark brown in the outer corner. And then I used Soulless Monster all over the lid, which, plot twist, this ended up being like one of my favorite shades in the palette that I like had been too intimidated to try on a work day. And then it just completely blew my mind. I then used Soul Reader, which is the black shade here. And then also Mood Control, just for a little bit on the inner corner. Like I said, Soulless Monster had me absolutely drooling. It was so beautiful. It paired really great with this yellow in the palette. I really loved that. And this black is good. This is a good black. It is very pigmented. It's rich. It's blendable. And it doesn't give a ton of fallout. Like, this is becoming one of my favorite blacks. I actually reach for it all the time, even when I'm using other palettes or like variations of shadows. This black is just amazing. For look number 2, I used the shade Marry Me right here, which is this like olivey brown shade, really unique. And then I used Your Everything again, which is this dark brown here. And then I used Adrenaline and Alice. And I will say, I honestly, so this is Alice, and I don't think this is a shade that I would organically reach for even again. I think it would have to be like creating something specific or trying to use things I don't normally use, because this is just not a shade that I'm gonna gravitate toward probably ever. I also felt like Adrenaline, like once I got it on the lid, it looked like very much more gold. Like we really lost a lot of the red orange reflect that you see in the swatch. It just looked very gold on my eye, as you can see, which I thought was like pretty weird. Not to mention, this is like one of their pressed glitters, I'm pretty sure. I don't know, I don't think it's marked on here, but I'm pretty sure this one is one of the pressed glitters, just from like having Colourpop palettes like in the past and having them now. So it's really not a shade I would want to really reach for anyways, because I try to be very mindful of glitters. I don't use them as much as I used to because I got glitter in my eye. And I'm not gonna like take that risk for a shade I'm not obsessed with. So that's another shade I don't really foresee myself using. So far we're up to the shade Alice and the shade Adrenaline. I don't really think I would use. There's nothing wrong like performance wise with those. I just, not my jam. Look number 3. This is a variation of like the look that I always do with this palette. It's absolutely stunning. I work a look around this shade. The shade is Wolfpack. And this is what I work the look around. This is the most beautiful shade in the palette, in my humble opinion. And I love the look that I was able to achieve with it. I used October, November, and December in this look also. And then You're Sorta Beautiful, which is this brown here. And then Soul Reader for the liner. Before, when I would do this variation, it would be between I would use this shade or I would use this shade on the outer corner. And that is what I would do with that combo. It is my favorite combo. It's very like sexy, I think. Like it is a very like nobody can tell me shit kind of look. So I really love that look. It's my go-to look with the palette. It's why I wanted to branch out and try something different, because that's literally the look that I always did. So I was like, let's see what else this palette has to offer. So for the last look, which is actually the look that I am wearing today, I used the shade Paper Cut, which is this really pretty maroon here, and then Face Punch, which is this shade that's all over my lid. Then I used again Your Everything and Your Sort of Beautiful. And I think that this look is fine. It kind of goes back to like, it's a little bit more bold and intense that I'm doing these days. The shade Face Punch is really just not my jam. It's very orangey. And when I was in my blonde era, I loved orange eyeshadow, but like being more in my brunette with like reddish purpley tones era, I don't love the orange. So probably not a shade I'm really gonna reach for. The shades that I didn't use were Bloodsuckers, which is this red here, and then Trade Secrets, which is this just like ugly ass gold in my opinion. I think this is ugly and I know that I won't use it. I think Bloodsuckers is pretty. It's a very pretty red, but like I don't really wear, like I just don't wear red shadow. Like I could see there being like some kind of event or theme that I would like reach for this red shadow, but it's not something that I personally am gonna wear on a daily basis. So out of this whole palette, there are probably 5 shades that I'm not really going to actively use. So I think that the ratio is like still pretty good. And the shades that I do use, like I really love them and I really enjoy them. They all perform very well. The October, November, December was like a skosh patchy. So I could see it being an issue if I was putting it like all over the lid or something. But since I'm just like dabbing it in that outer corner, it really wasn't like a big deal. But I did want to mention that. But yeah, I really enjoyed doing this one because it helped me get familiar with all the other shades in the palette and color combos that I can go back to and try again later. So yeah, I'm definitely going to hang on to this palette. I think it is gorgeous, especially like for the fall. It's going to be a really gorgeous fall color story. And I think me and my friend Michelle are actually going to do a collab with this one over on IG because we both have it and we both love the Twilight series. So yeah, really loved getting to know this palette. All right, so far I think we're doing pretty well. We decided to keep 2 palettes, declutter 1 palette, and we just made some general discoveries about which shades that I want to use and what shades that I don't want to use. And also I was able to explore and better get a feel for the New Moon palette, which I haven't really had a chance to do. So overall, I do think that this pairing was very productive, and now I'm one less palette in my collection. Okay, so I know I said initially in the intro we were going to do these alphabetically, and I fully planned to do that. However, I think my tea palettes are really well suited for the fall. So I want to take advantage of that and use them now while we're moving into fall since it's September. So the next update you can expect to see from me in approximately 2 months is going to be with all of my tea palettes. And that's going to be Tom Ford and Too Faced. So the Too Faced palette that I have is the Pumpkin Spice palette. I originally had this, loved this. I had multiple pans in it and my formula went way off. Then a friend in the community didn't want hers anymore, so she sent it to me. And when I used it last fall, it was performing fine. So let's hope that it still continues to perform fine. This is such a beautiful color story. I wish Too Faced would bring this back It is one of their most well done, in my opinion. Like literally one of the only Too Faced palettes that I've ever truly like loved. And I love pulling this out in the fall. So this is a perfect time. I was like, we have to do tea so that I can use this palette. So this will be one you see in the next update. And then I have two palettes from Tom Ford. The first one is the Honeymoon palette. I have the Valentine's Day edition that they did. Not this year, but the year before, I believe. I got this as a gift. Super, super pretty. Definitely looking forward to playing with this now that my makeup style has changed a little bit. I enjoyed it the first time, like the first times I was using it, but I think now I'll enjoy it even more now that my style of makeup has changed. I really just foresee me wearing these like all over the lid and popping these two in the corner. But very excited to dip into this. And then the last one that I have is the Tom Ford Body Heat Quad, and I've had this for a hot minute. This palette is getting very, very old. So I also wanted to pull it to the front because it's one that I could see myself decluttering by the end of the year. I'm just like want to make sure that the formula is okay. It's like one of my oldest and it's no longer available. I looked on the Sephora site and the Tom Ford site because I was like, you know what, maybe I'll just like replace it because it is getting so old, but it's not available anymore. So I wanted to pull this one out and really test it to see if it's even something I'm really gonna wear anymore, because before I would do very deep sultry looks with it and like I'm not really doing that. But I think there's room here to be flexible. So yeah, I'm really excited to get these out and play with them. I think it's gonna be fun, and hopefully, since I have two quads, I'm hoping that I will see you guys a little bit sooner between updates. But make sure you have those notifications on so you know when I upload. And yeah, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And like I said about the swatches, if you have suggestions on which format you liked better or a completely different format I should try, please let me know, because I'm including the swatches to try to be helpful. So if I'm doing them in a way that's not helpful, I want to change it. Because I don't know, I feel like my lighting is super bad looking up in there, and I'm just hoping that it's not as bad as I think that it is. But yes, anyways, that's all. I'm done yapping. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, wherever you are, wherever you at. I'm sending you all my love, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye.